Well, that didn't take long. we really did not have to wait long at all for this, did we? Was it last week? Nintendo put out that Emio teaser. Spooky guy with bag on head and smile, despite be scary. Very terrifying. And we were wondering, like, are we gonna have to wait for the next Direct to find out what this is? Or are they gonna just drop another thing on us? Is there gonna be like a series of teasers? No, here it is. There it is. We now know exactly who Emio is. Emio is the antagonist in a brand new Famicom Detective Club game. And it's funny because like everybody was kind of speculating what this might be, what old IPs it might be tied to. And I think I saw at least one person at one point speculating Famicom Detective Club. And that person was on the money. That's exactly what this was. And it's really funny because this announcement, it kind of spans this incredibly wide spectrum from disappointing to incredibly amazing. And it kind of just depends on who you are. Anybody can be like at any end of this really, really extreme spectrum. Since the initial teaser was so vague, obviously our imaginations were kind of running wild, and there were those of us who were hoping that this would lead to some sort of like really new original thing. I personally really liked the idea that Nintendo was trying their hand at like a genuine horror game. And so it definitely is disappointing to see that it is not that. And I know that then a lot of people will say, well, that's your fault for getting your hopes up. You shouldn't have made assumptions. But here's the thing about that though. That's literally the point of a teaser. That's why you tease people, to get them guessing, to get them imagining and wondering. Like, of course we're gonna go somewhere with it. We're not like trying to be unreasonable. Like that's the point of a teaser, to tease you. So like, yeah, it is disappointing that we're not just getting some like spooky horror game. Like, I mean, I'm sure the game will be scary, but like, Famicom Detective Club, it's visual novels. It's going to be a visual novel. And a visual novel, it can be scary, but like I wouldn't necessarily call it like a horror game in the traditional sense, survival horror, anything like that. Yeah, it's a bit different. And I think the thing is the teaser worked too well. I think Nintendo put out this teaser and it really, really worked. It maybe worked even better than it should have, because like, yeah, it was so unusual coming from Nintendo. Like just the fact that it was so unusual and so vague, that's why it kind of felt like it could be something bigger. It could be something very new. So that's why that's a little disappointing. And it's also sad to see that just like, that's it. Like we had the Emio tease, and again, I'm wondering, and I'm thinking like, ooh, what if there's a series of teases? What if it's like what if it's a little mystery and they keep dropping little tidbits, but instead it was the teaser, and then boom, here it is, here's the game. It's the game. That's it. And even now, like we see like the little cartoonified version of Emio, of the smiling man. And so just like that mystique, that scariness, that like horror movie aesthetic, it's gone now. It's all 100% gone. Question 100% answered. Just that aspect of the experience is simply over. And yeah, that's also just a little bit sad, because like you have this teaser, and again, it's why I feel like the teaser, it worked too well, because the teaser interested a really big audience. It went everywhere, and everybody was into this mystery, but then they revealed a product that interests a much smaller number of people. And that's why it feels like a bit of a letdown. The teaser reached a lot of people, and then the product that it was teasing reached a relatively small number of people, and everybody else just goes, oh, okay, I guess it's not a thing for me, and they all just kind of like awkwardly, slowly walk off mumbling. However, we simply must acknowledge that to anyone within that admittedly relatively small group of people, If you are already a fan of Famicom Detective Club, this announcement was mind-blowing. Just like so incredible. They remade the original 2 Famicom Detective Club games, and even that kind of felt like that was a surprise. That was a really big surprise. These are like pretty obscure games from Nintendo's history, and the fact that they like localized those games and remade them, even just like knowing there's not a massive audience for these games. There's really not. They're not gonna sell millions of copies. Nintendo knows that, but Nintendo's okay with that. Sometimes they're okay with doing a thing just because it's cool, just because it's cool to bring a thing back. So that already felt like such a gift, especially to people who were like genuine fans of the originals. And so now, after 30 years, the series is getting a brand new game. A brand new game. Now, if that's you, if you're one of those fans, like this right here, it turns out the Emio thing that everyone's all freaked out about, it's a brand new 30-year Famicom Detective. It's mind-blowing. It's really fantastic. And I really love that we had this direct, and this direct is just going down in history because it had just so many mind-blowing announcements. They had another one. But they were like, you know what? Nah. We're gonna pull this one out of the direct and give it its own fun little tease. Let it be its own thing. And that's just how many games they had, just how many bombshells they had, how many crowd pleasers. I love that. They had so many they couldn't even fit them in the direct. They're like, nah, this one, nah, it's gonna do its own thing. And it was all the better for it because we got the whole tease, we got the whole build up. But yeah, just getting a brand new Famicom Detective Club, it's just another example in such a ridiculously long line of examples of the Switch making dreams come true, you know, of the Switch generation just delivering, taking these long time old forgotten series and bringing them to the modern age, whether through sequels and or remakes. And, you know, it definitely gets you thinking. Gets you thinking about Advance Wars, you know, that kind of thing. Oh, the Advance Wars games, first 2, those got remakes. Does that mean that are they maybe working on a brand new one right now? It's certainly possible. And I tell you, the little video that they gave us, Yoshio Sakamoto, I always forget that he's the one who basically like created and worked on the originals. And so now he is working on this one, and I love this video. I love how they give him just a few minutes to just talk about the project, and the way he puts it, he's basically in charge of everything. He came up with the story and most of the writing and all of these little details. Like, this is a passion project largely from the mind of one guy. And he mentions how he, you know, the art and everything else he brought to trusted colleagues within Nintendo. Like, I mean, just, I don't know. You can just see the passion exuding from him. And how often do you get these big multi-billion-dollar game corporations, one, working on much smaller projects that they know is not going to reach a very big audience, but they're doing it anyway because not everything has to be the biggest success ever. So that's already unusual. But then letting essentially one person be the creative driving force behind this project, and just giving that person creative space to just do whatever they want to do with the project. And, you know, and Yoshio Sakamoto, he does Metroid as well. And even so many years after the fact, they still gave him Metroid Dread because he had a vision for it, and he has passion for the series. So between Dread and now Famicom Detective Club, like, they're just letting this dude do what he wants. And I just think it's amazing. I think it's really, really cool. This video is just hearing him talk about it. It's infectious. His passion for what he's doing. It's incredible to see. So overall, it is really cool. My final disappointment is just how Nintendo prices their games. You know, they give their creators space to make these smaller games, but then they still have to price them to death. I mean, you know, like, I have no doubt the first games are good, but like, I'm never gonna buy them. I'm never gonna play them. I don't know. They're too much money for what they are, in my opinion. I hear they're really short, and there's a million other visual novels out there to play for a lot less money, and I'm sure they're good. I'm sure they're high quality. I'm sure the Nintendo quality is there. But I don't know. It's just a little bit too much for me, and this game is going to be $50, and it's like... $50, that's almost full price. Is it going to be as short as those games? I don't know. Maybe not, and it's that, you know, that constant debate with Nintendo and pricing, how it's like, why do you gotta price so high? You're gonna sell fewer units and make more money per unit. Wouldn't it be better to sell for less and make less per unit, but you sell that many more copies, so you make the same amount of money, but you also gain new fans. You reach new people. Nothing is more important for something this obscure than reaching as many people as possible. If you remade the first 2 games and now you're making a new game, then you want this series to be a thing, but you are pricing so many people out of being able to experience it because there are a million trillion other games to play. Competition is fierce. You have to give a little bit. You have to make some amount of sacrifice in order to try to reach new people. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But I don't want to end on just a negative note. This whole thing, the fact that this is what Emio ended up being, in a way, yes, it's disappointing. I was kind of hoping for something a little more grand, a little more tailored to my taste, something a little bit more actually horror-oriented. However, brand new Famicom Detective Club. Who saw that coming? Who had that on their bingo card? I certainly didn't.